We welcome Cuba's decision to release a substantial number of prisoners whose cases were directly raised with the Cuban government by my team.
We don't know about any of the 53 dissidents that supposedly, political prisoners that were supposedly going to be released.
It's my understanding that not all of them have been released at this point, but as part of the agreement that was brokered, that this prisoner release that the Cuban government decided to undertake on their own in the context of these discussions would take place in stages.
In stages. The 53 political prisoners were said to be released, being released from Cuban jails as part of this deal, and that some already had been. That was the word when this whole shift in Cuban policy was announced by the president. But it's not clear that they have been or they will be. We're back with our panel. A.B., it seems just a little twisted here, this whole process.
You know, you can argue about the policy, but let's say you're someone who agrees with this policy. What about this process? Why has President Obama and his team left out maybe some cursory notification, but left out meaningful engagement with key dissident leaders in Cuba? Dissidents have now been locked up since this exchange was announced. Why do we not know who's on the list of the 53? If you leave out critical voices, you're going to be left holding the bag if this ends up having an adverse outcome. My argument with the administration about this kind of thing is that they do themselves such a disservice, literally becoming the sort of the caricature of their critics, which is that they do everything for the sweep of history in a bold headline, but they don't do it right. From Guantanamo, they didn't have a plan to close it. They just made the announcement. To creating a federal website for a national health care system. The Bergdahl exchange.
Which we haven't seen the end of.
They didn't consult Congress. They didn't consult the man in his unit. And on and on. There's always this moment with chins on floor saying, we just don't understand why it was done this way. And they do it to themselves.
George.
Yeah, well, you get mental whiplash trying to listen to these people. On the one hand, the president, we just heard him say, we brought these 53, why 53? We were not told. We brought these 53 to the attention of the Cuban government. Then Ernst comes out and says something like the opposite. It wasn't clear what he was saying, but he seemed to be saying that the Cubans brought this up, that's voluntary on their part.
And it wasn't tied to the, I mean, it's very disjointed.
Exactly.
It's optional.
Now, so the question is, if the ladies in white, the Cuban group that monitors these, are tremendously brave people, don't know about this, then it hasn't happened. So why the White House is pretending that it's happened or won't tell us that it's happened or won't mention who they are? We picked the 53, supposedly. Why can't we have 53 names?
Charles, is this shifting? I mean, the conventional wisdom is that this is such a great deal if you read all the stories about it. Is it shifting?
No, it was hollow from the very beginning. There is no real care in this administration for human rights abroad. Obviously, they have no great interest in these prisoners. It was a throw-in at the end of the deal. They had none for the revolution in Iran in 2009. They have none for Russian dissidents who stand in the way of a deal with the Russians. Look, the reason that Josh Earnest was pretending that this is a humanitarian independent gesture on the part of the Castros is because we don't want to offend the Cubans into thinking it was somehow a deal. Well, why in God's name did we immediately release the 3 Cuban spies and not insist that they be an immediate release of the 53 Cubans? Why is it in stages? Here are people who are entirely innocent of a real crime other than opposing the regime and releasing real criminals. I think the worst part is what James Rosen reported. We're going to start negotiations in 2 weeks on normalization without insisting in advance that the prisoners are released. That's not a precondition. We're going to start and get absolutely nothing. It's impossible to believe the administration will be so weak and thoughtless in doing that. We will see. They got 2 weeks to produce. I hope they do, but I worry that they won't.
Quickly. And this is going to affect something very big indeed, because as it becomes evidence that the president is an unreliable negotiator, Congress is going to take charge of the Iranian negotiations with their own sanctions and force that on the president's desk.
This is going to be trouble on Capitol Hill.
Well, if those names don't come up before they're negotiating normalization, yes.